Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I am Barry Rowland. In this episode, we'll be doing part 2 of the 2-part video review series on the T1000 5M motion system from the guys at Prosimu. With an actuator speed of 280 millimeters per second and 150 millimeters of travel, this promises to be a very fun simulation experience. Time to put it through the SRG's review process and see how it does. So, let's get to it. For our SCN6 actuator that's going to be driving our yaw axis, I'm going to show you the parts that we're going to be cabling up for that. And first off, this is the controller driver box for that SCN6. You may have seen this if you saw the build video, part 1 of this 2-part series. And I'll give you another close look at this. And Dyadic from Japan makes this, along with the SCN6 servo we'll be using. And we've got some connectors here that go to the servo. And one is a 9-plug, one is a 4-plug or pin, 9-pin, 4-pin. And on the other side, we have a multi-pin. I didn't count them all. As you can see, there's a lot available there. And we have another 4-pin connector that's going towards the computer, right? So let's go ahead and put that aside. I'm not taking that box apart. Now, we're going to have to power it. And that's what, well, I'll tell you what, before I do that, let's just talk about the path to the computer as we're getting there. Now, there's a couple of black boxes that came with this, and I kind of took it apart so I could show you guys what's going on here. And on this box, you can see there's a power supply, the usual 5.5 millimeter DC plug that goes in here. And this is just a simple little breakout board here, right, that we're going to plug the power into. And then we have this plug. It's kind of a punch down plug. You can see it's got punch downs on the top there. And that is wired according to their specs or specification for Dyadic. And yeah, that's what's going to power our servo drive, right? So there it is. So that goes to the drive, which I thought this would be some kind of a data, but it's not, or data, and it's not. So yeah, I took that apart so you guys can see it. And we've got a couple of green LEDs sitting up there. Get my finger out of the way. There we go. So like I said, a simple little breakout board here. And then we're going to have this part going on the other side of the driver that we just saw, right? The driver controller. And this is plugging into that. And then the other side of that's going over to the computer. And internally here, we have well, I guess I can take the whole thing out. There we go. A little USB conversion board. See it right there? That's what it looks like, but there's only 2 wires going to it. So to be quite honest, yeah, it says USB. So it's just a USB on it for us. You can see it on the back there. But we're only using 2 wires, so I'm sure it works, but I would have thought there'd been more, but okay. And yeah, I'll just kind of put this back together here. And this will go back together like this. I'll just show you these pieces when they're sitting like they should be sitting. I got to get this little hole located over that plug like that. Then it all sits nice and neat inside and looks like that. Now, there was a piece of electrical tape here that's going over these pieces here so you don't get any dust in there or nothing gets caught in there, right? So this is electrical tape that I took off just so I could, show you guys how this works. Plus, I had to take it off because of the way the cover works. Right. So, yeah, the actual power supply is kind of a universal deal. Okay, this one's called Voltcraft, all right? And you can see it has the usual kind of power supply, wall work kind of looking things that we use for power supplies on computers and such. And the one they sent me with this, because this came from Europe, you can see it has the 230 volt or 220 volt pins on it, which I'm not going to be using. But I have several of these type of cables that have this type of termination in it that I'll be able to plug into, and it has the regular 110 volt that I need for my purposes. And it comes with, I have the right adapter on here now. I'll show you that real quick. The 5.5 mil adapter. And there is a bunch of them that come with this power supply. It's kind of like a universal power supply for laptops and things. And this one actually is going to peak out at 22 volts at 5 amps. You can see it right there. All right, so there's the information for that. So we're going to be running, and I have this turned all the way up to, where is my turn up? Oh, there it is. So a little dongle sitting down here in the cable itself that we actually turn to which voltage we want. And so I have this turned to the 22 for the maximum voltage. So yeah, that we're going to be running this SEN6 with. So there it is. That's the electronics that we're going to be using for the SEN6 path connection that goes over to the PC. So I'm going to put all this back together, and then we're going to go over and start getting everything cabled up so we can run this bad boy. So let's take a closer look at the controller box. It's housing our servo drives, and this is called a Rackmatic, and typical of these kind of applications, you'll see these servo controllers that are in here put in some kind of a metal box, which is a good thing for EMI resistance. Now, obviously the metal will help with that. Of course, this one has a glass face on it so we can see what's going on. But it's also a neat, compact way to put your drives in. And this is actually a pretty substantial box. Of course, with the drives in it, it's even more substantial. It's got some nice adjustable feet on it. Now, it doesn't have on the sides here, like a lot of rack boxes, you can actually take the sides off, you can take the back off for getting it to easy access rather to everything inside. Now there is a panel on top of this. Let me show you. Let's keep spinning around so you can see all of it. So it's got a little access panel on top of that, and I'll show you in a look inside what's going on with that as far as how the wiring goes on this. Now we've also had a couple of wires coming off the back, and they have our USB, which we plug into the PC, and we have the kill switch, right? So this is, and that's actually a pretty substantial kill switch. It's a pretty nice one. You guys can see what the branding is on that. And it has a nice metal sleeve instead of plastic. A lot of them have plastic here. Even though the button is plastic, it's a nice thick feeling metal sleeve here. So when you push this down, it's got a lot of spring pressure on it too. Yeah, it's pretty, it's like I said, it's a heavy duty one, which is nice. And let's see, we also got our mains plug in the back, and as you'll notice, I am in North America, but I've got a European plug here because these are 230 servo drives, right? So I'm having to use the step-up transformer for that. So let's spin it back around. You can see where they've actually used some socket head cap screws to mount those servo drives to the back of this box. And we'll just continue on around here. And on the front, we have some nice cable management here for our controllers, right, the drives. And they're bundled out here. Let me make sure you guys can see all this. There we go. And each one of these bundles, let's get one that's longer so I can get it closer to the camera, has a data plug that will plug into the servo part of our actuators that are on the rig already. And we have the power right here. And the power is a 4-plug unit. And these wires actually feel like they're solid core. It could be just a hard plastic sheathing, but I tell you, they're hard to bend, which makes me think they might be a solid core wire. Anyway, so yeah, nicely done here. They're all labeled as far as which axes these are going to be on. I think this is axis 1, yeah. This one actually shows you that it's axis 1. Am I close enough? You see that? There we go. Axis 1, and this one should be axis 2, I'm assuming. There we go. Axis 2. Right. And so forth and so on to axis 3 and 4 on these other cables. Now, this is a locked box when you get it. They don't want you messing around with their driver, servo drives, which I don't blame them. But I got a key for it though, and I'm going to open it up. And this won't be the look inside. The look inside a little bit more detailed than this. But I just wanted to give you a quick look at the insides and how these servo drives are mounted up in here, right? And these are Delta servo drives. I actually was able to get in here and see what the label said on which drive they're using here. And they're the ASD A2 0721-Ms, yeah. And yeah, they're at 750 watts and 230 volts at 5.1 amps on each one of these. So, yeah, obviously plenty to drive our servo motors and control them. Right, so not much else to see here on the box. Yeah, we already went all the way around. The cool part's when I'm going to take this part off. I'm going to get some better light in here, and I'm going to pull this little box that we have in here that has the USB interface that ties all the controllers into a circuit board in here, probably, I'm guessing. And yeah, then we got the USB interface that goes out to the computer. Right, so when we come back, we'll take our look inside. Now for the look inside segment for our controller box. Again, a very nice wiring job that's been done here. and we'll check out some of the components. The first thing, they have a plastic box here that I showed you on the closer look, and this is what's inside. And it's the interface that goes from the, what I'm calling the master controller or drive for the servo, down to the board, which gets converted to USB so that everything can talk to your PC. Right, we also have on this some screw down blocks, wire blocks for the kill switch. And you can see this wire here is going back up into the first controller or master controller. And the other wire is going back out towards the back, routed back there. And it comes out the back and goes to our kill switch you see laying over there. Right. So you can also see that the communication between all of these controllers is done by a daisy chain. We've got one coming out here, and it loops around here, comes back into the next controller, and it comes out that one. It comes around, goes in there, and goes back out. And finally, we have one left over the controller there. Right. So everything, again, very neat wiring job. Everything is zip tied where it should be. You can see little zip ties running down here. And back in the back here, you can see there's the power cable that comes in. We have the mains coming in right here. All right, so this is coming in from our step-up transformer and going into these little blocks they have back there. Call them loom blocks. See if I can get some light on there without getting too much shadow on it for you. And you can see that we have 3 wires coming out, and they're going to these looms here. And the power is being transferred up and over. And you can see the top here where they've been wired in. And I'm going to give you a B-roll here also on the back because I took the access panel off the top up there. So yeah, just a little B-roll showing you the cable job that they've done there. Again, everything's very neatly done, a very professional looking job here. And if we go down the bottom of these, we can see this is where the data, and we also have our earth ground block down there. You can see it, or rail rather. You can see that earth ground running all the way across. And underneath there, you see those white plugs, and those are the power plugs coming out of the controllers that go to the motors. And the data plugs, obviously for the motors, are up here in these D-form type of plugs. You have one here, there, there, and there. And they're going out underneath the box itself, and then coming out into these bundles that we've already seen on the closer look part. So yeah, overall, a very neat looking job here. I like the way this looks, very professional looking. And yeah, the case itself doesn't have removable side panels. I thought they might be, but it's all one solid case. And again, just gives you some integrity of the case as far as being stiffer than if you have one with just the panels and the skeleton structure, like a lot of the rack mount type things are in the network business, if you guys have ever worked in that with switches and routers. So yeah, I like what I see here. I don't have any complaints about anything. Everything looks to be well done. And yeah, so we'll just move on to the next segment. Now, the PRS actuators require 230 volts to operate properly. And I live in North America, and of course, we're on the 110 volt or 115 volt system. So I had to buy this. And if you get the Prosimu system, that is in their instructions. You're going to need to get a step-up transformer or step-up, step-down. And that's typically how you'll find these things, step-up, step-down transformers. Now, this one is a Light Fuse brand, which really, you know, the only reason I bought this, it was recommended, and it had a lot of great reviews on Amazon where I bought it. And I bought on Amazon, I believe it was, I think I got a shot of it here, about close to $130 shipped to my house. So yeah, that's another thing you have to consider in North America is you will need this guy, right? And this is a 3000 watt. That's why it's called a LT 3000. And it should be enough, plenty to run this system. And I've been running it a little bit already and haven't had a hiccup anywhere, so I'm really not worried about that. Now, the thing about this is it's got these European connectors over here, right? We got kind of a universal looking piece here, and we have this big round one here. Now, we have this electrical plug. Now, this over here in North America is known as the German European plug. And the reason is because of the way it's shaped, and we have a ground up here, and we have another ground down on the bottom here. And of course, we have the 2 live poles here where the live electricity goes. And just in a nutshell, I'm not going to go too deep on this. So this plug over here is kind of universal. It'll accept a lot of different interfaces. And I think that's showing up pretty good there. You can see it better there. Okay. But if you look over here at this plug, whoops, wrong way, I'm reversed. Over here, you'll see that it has two metal tabs here. And of course, we've got a couple of holes in there. Now, the metal tabs are grounds, right? So if you have this cord or this kind of connector, you could actually plug it right in here. And that would work. I've done it just to see if it would work. And yeah, so that works. But of course, we're not using the ground over here in the system, right? We're just using these two guys here. So that's why you want to make sure that you plug it in this one, because remember, we have the ground connection down here and up here. So when I put it in like this, then I'm utilizing the grounds and everything like I should. Not only that, but it fits really nice in there. And if you'll see, it kind of goes in a little bit flush. And I'm going to run it straight up and down. You can run it off. You can run it the other way also if you want to run it down. But I would have to kind of stick it off the edge to be able to do that. And not only that, but I don't have enough cord here to show you that. But anyway, that's how I'm going to run it. Stick it in there just like that. So on the back of these things, and this is one that'll go up or down. So it has a selector for our volts. You can go 115. You can see I have 115 on here. And of course, if I flip it up, it goes to 230. All right, so that would be a step down situation where I'm in 230 in Europe, and I want to step it down to the 115, right? So we also have a nice power switch here on the mains, and it is a fused switch. We got a fuse over here, little button, and we also have a fuse over here, depending on which circuit we're running this thing on, okay? And of course, I have my usual plug in there. Not a whole lot to see in a step-up, step-down transformer. And they are heavy. This one comes in at about 25 pounds or so. Of course, we've got these huge transformer in here, so that's what makes it weigh so much. So yeah, not a lot to see here. So what we're going to do next is go ahead and get this set up over where the rig is and get everything cabled up, and then take a look at the cabling and how we went about getting that done. So I have all the actuators wired up now. They're cabled up. And you can see I have the driver controller box over here on the side. I would have put it up front of the rig, but I have a cart here that I keep all my electronics on, and the middle shelf or bottom shelf is filled, and the top one would have been okay, but it just doesn't, the cables aren't long enough to reach all the way back here to the other actuator in the rears. They can reach, it just didn't give me enough slack when I did that. And of course, if you don't have a cart like this in front that you're moving all the time, and of course the SRG, I need something like that, I would probably just set it in front, close to the front up, and just put my computer up there too. And yeah, you'd have plenty of room to get your cabling to go underneath the front of the chassis and come out the sides here and go up towards the actuators. Right, and of course we have our transformer sitting up there, our step-up transformer. And you can see the cabling, I actually put some zip ties on this just to keep them kind of out of the way. I'll give you a little closer look at that. And it was pretty easy to do the cables here. As far as the instructions go, we have, and you can see this one here says Axis 1, right? And I'm going to show you a schematic they give you with this system. And you can see it here. It's the actuator order. And it's pretty easy. You got Axis 1 over here on the front right. And on the front left over there is Axis 2. And then back here on the rear, this should be Axis 4. And I believe it is. Yep. And then if we come over here, this should be Axis 3. And again, that chart makes it pretty easy to get all this set up properly. Let's see. Let me turn this around so we can read it. Yeah. Oops. There it is. Axis 3. Okay. Right. So I have these guys running down the bottom and underneath, and another one coming out. And you do have to leave a little bit of slack here. Obviously, with 6 inches of travel, you're going to have a little slack to accommodate that travel. And we'll take a look at that later when we have everything up and running like it should be. So really not that hard to cable this up. And the USB cables are coming around the bottom here, and give a little shot there, and going into my powered hub that's not powered currently. Right, so pretty easy to do this. I do have the cabling for the SEN6, the guy on the bottom here. And that's going underneath the chassis also, but this box is kind of hanging out here. I'll probably put a piece of electrical tape on those connectors there, and those are connectors for the emergency kill switch. So that's the white cable going back up. You can see I've routed that over here to our emergency kill switch there. right next to the Fanatic one. Now I've got two of them. Right, so that's going over to our power supply that we used before. You can see it kind of resting over there, and that's the 110, and it's at 22 volts in that little fob that we saw before. Yeah, so everything went pretty smoothly, and I've already been running it, so everything's working like it should. So yeah, not much else to see on the cabling job here. And what we'll do next is go ahead and start talking about, first I'll probably just start it up and let you guys see the startup sequence, and then we'll go into the SimTools software and start talking about how we get this thing going using SimTools. Now I want to do a startup test. I have everything cabled up as it should be, and this is without SimTools running. So we're just going to flip on the step-up transformer, and that obviously that's going to power our box down here that has our controller drivers in it. And we'll see how the rig goes through its test just based on the hardware over here and whatever programming it has in it. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And it does take just a couple of, well, maybe a minute and a half, maybe not that long. It just seems like it sometimes when I'm waiting for it. But yeah, it's going to boot up, load the firmware. You just heard a little bump there, and then it'll go through a sequence where it actually raises it throughout the length or the height that's available on these actuators. And there we go. So you can see it goes up pretty high. Get a step ladder. All right, so there you have it. That's the startup of the PRS 200 actuators, and the yaw will start up once I initiate SimTools on the computer. So what we'll do next is just go ahead and load up SimTools and see what happens when I do that and go from there. Now I'm going to show you guys how this yaw axis actuator, the SEN6, goes through its range of travel based on the firmware that's loaded on it. And we're going to start the SimTools engine, which we're going to get into SimTools later, but that's what I'm doing. I'm starting the game engine, which activates this yaw axis. So we'll go ahead and do that, get it started here. And we should see the yaw axis move, and there it goes. All right, so now we know that our yaw axis is working as it should, and we also know that our PRS 200 actuators are working because they went through their range of travel. So now it's just a matter of getting in and starting to work with the SimTools application itself. And yeah, we'll take a look at how all that works later on. Now let's take a look on what I've done as far as the setup for the configuration I have now that I'll be testing in. And let's look at the pedal tray first up front. I do like this pedal tray. It's a very solid pedal tray. We have a lot of adjustment as far as the angle, as you can see how high we can go on that back bolt. And the front bolt will actually kind of pivot back as we adjust the angle. But I don't need to adjust the angle on this right now. With this pedal set that I'm currently testing, yeah, no issues there as far as the angle. I don't know, I actually might kick it up a little bit, but we'll just wait and see after I'm driving it how it feels. The wheelbase mount itself, again, we have two M8 bolts holding it there, and you can see the slot there for adjustment. I've kind of got it pushed out about halfway, and then we have another bolt up front here on the flange that's welded to it, holding it that way. And then remember, if you watch the assembly or the build portion of the video on this review, which is part 1, it has the bolt over on the other side securing it there. Right, now this is a single bar that comes up and bends over 90 degrees so that we have, yeah, a single bar. And we have a single bar attached to that. So as you might imagine, with this kind of configuration, there is going to be some flex in this mount. And I'm going to show you a shot of it here of me just pushing on it. And I use a pushing style when I'm driving, so I can feel this flexing a bit on me, especially at the high torque levels that this DD2 wheel, or DD2 wheelbase rather, is running at. I run it usually around 100%. So yeah, I can feel it flexing, as you can see it here. But it doesn't really bother me that much. You know, I'd rather have it solid, don't get me wrong. You know me, I'm an anti-flex kind of person, but yeah, it's still completely drivable. But, and again, this is a heavy direct drive wheelbase that's mounted here. As far as the height and everything else on the adjustments of this is fine. It works fine. I didn't have any problem dialing it in where I needed it to be. And of course, you can see I have my emergency stops for the Prosimu system and the Fanatec system next to each other mounted, which was convenient. I had places to do that. And I'm running the Airlogs handbrake because I want to do some rallycross with this system, and maybe some of those Lucas trucks where you jump up in the air and see how the suspension system handles that on these PRS200 actuators. The seat is, again, kind of a straight up back seat. There's not much lean back to this seat. It's hard for you to see that from a video, but it doesn't have the same kind of lean back that my Sparco does over there. Even though it's obviously tilted rear to the rear, it's actually tilted back more on the back than this one is, which I don't know if you guys can see the example of it there. And I've got this seat all the way up in the bracket on the front and all the way on the bottom on the back. So I got maximum rake available in this seat mount, the side brackets here. So just one of those things that I like to point out. It's not like it's not drivable or anything, but not the most comfortable seat for me that I've been in. But, you know, seats are a very subjective thing when it comes to comfort. Who knows what you're going to like best? So we'll just go ahead and go around to the side here on the other side where not much else to see really. Same thing we saw before. But overall, I'm comfortable in this. I don't have that much problem with it. I wish they had some kind of a different wheelbase mount that had something stiffer. Maybe even have another piece coming up off the frame over here like that one and just kind of meeting in the middle or something. But anyway, it is what it is. And again, yeah, I just want to give you guys a quick flyby to see how I have this thing set up. And of course, again, I'm running the Fanatec DD2 wheelbase with the Porsche wheel, their new Porsche wheel setup with that button module they have for it, the endurance module. Right, so let's go ahead and get on to the next segment. So you've got your Prosimu unit all put together, the cockpit's ready to go, no matter what cockpit you have on there, and you're ready to start having fun in your Prosimu unit or system. So SimTools is what runs the Prosimu system. SimTools is a very popular application out there for running simulation, be it flight, car, or whatever. There's a lot of do-it-yourself guys using it, and actually there's a lot of manufacturers that use SimTools, and Prosimu is one of them. Now, it's just another application that you load on your computer, so I'm not going to go through all that. And you will have to get a license and register it. And once you have it loaded, you'll have these. I'll go ahead and show you down here. Zip down here. Where are we? Where's my SimTools? Oops, went too far. There it is. You'll have these applications. We have a game engine, we have a game manager, a plugin updater, and a registration. And you'll click on that to register it, and you will have an email address and a key from Prosimu to register SimTools in the Pro version. And that's what you see here. See, we're Pro because it's lit up in green. And this is a patch over here. We'll talk about Game Manager in a minute. But yeah, Game Manager, Game Engine is what we want. And I have a couple of shortcuts in here to run it. You have to have everything turned on before you start your SimTools Game Engine and Game Manager, because it won't see the COM ports active, and that's part of the deal here, obviously, to communicate with the systems, is it has to have some COM ports assigned to it. And we'll talk about that in a minute too. But yeah, once you have everything fired up, then you turn on your game engine and you'll actually see some movement in the yaw axis. And then you'll know things are working sort of right away. Now, I'm going to go back to the home screen that says Prosimu because this is their version of the SimTools. That's actually their picture because we've loaded their profile. And we'll talk about profiles in a minute too. So first thing you want to do here, once we're up and running, you got your SimTools loaded, licenses are good, and you got some profiles loaded, you'll go to Access Assignments. And I'm going to go to Access Assignments here. That's the first page. I was on Access Limiting because I was playing with it before. Right. So here we have DOF 1, 2, 3, and it goes on to 4 and 5, being heave, roll, pitch, surge, and sway. Now, if you notice in sway, DOF 1, we actually have another actuator that does not exist on the others, the Axis 5A. Now, remember Axis 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, and 5A. If you remember your diagram, when we were wiring all this up or cabling up, they give you a diagram to plug into the right actuators as far as where they're located on your cockpit. And Extra 1, or Axis 5A, is the yaw axis or traction loss. And that's why it's in the sway DOF, direction of freedom. So here we have the next one, DOF 2, is actually called surge. Now, surge really, in the true essence of the word, is not in this system, right? Because surge would be a forward force, but you do get some surge, especially in a 100mm capable system as far as travel goes. You definitely get more surge than you do in, say, like a 1.5-inch system, right? So you definitely get some feeling of that, especially if you get a seat belt or a harness put into your system where it's anchored somewhere in the back that doesn't move, and then it will increase the surge effect. But anyway, basically what you're doing is pitching, which is actually the next DOF. And you can see in surge we only have 4 actuators because there's no need for the SCN6 yaw actuator to be there. DOF pitch is the same way, and here you also can change which direction these actuators. I meant to tell you that, but again, I don't want to get too deep into this. So yeah, let's stay at just kind of skimming across it here. Let's go over to DOF 4. Again, 4 actuators, our main PRS 200s, and over here DOF 5, and that is heave. So that's definitely true as far as what this system is capable of. It's just surge is pushing it a bit, but you'll still get a sense of it depending on how much pitch you have. Right. So that's what you want to look for as far as the default configuration. Now, if you know something, notice something here, a game list. That's the default configuration right here on our game list. If I drop down, I only got a couple loaded. Set of course, iRacing, Live for Speed, which I don't play. I just loaded it for fun to see if things would work. Just testing. And you can see if I change the Assetto Corsa, watch the sway down here. It doesn't move. None of this stuff moves. So this is really kind of the default setup that you shouldn't ever have to mess with, unless you want to play with some filters and things like that. Again, we're not going to get into that here. Right. So let's go over to axis limiting. Now this is where, just like it sounds, the amount of axis to use. So how much of the travel of that 100mm do we use? Typically, you don't want to use 100% of it, because then you'll be bottoming out every time you go down and up and to the end points or the end stops of the actuator system in each actuator, which is probably not a healthy thing to do over and over for the long term. So I have mine at 90. Actually, I think it was defaulted 80 or 85. I can't remember which one, but I've kind of been playing around with stuff here. And that's, again, what you can do with this, is play around with it. So much for the axis assignments. Let's go to interface settings, and this is probably where you end up first, because to make all this work, we've got 2 interfaces. We've got interface 1, which consists of 4 axes. See that number of axes? And it says 4, and COM port 8, right? And we have 4 axes here because this interface is the combined 4 actuators that are the PRS 200s. And if you look over here, interface type has its own special name called PRS 200 version 3. There are some others available. HyperX, Memory Map Network, all kinds of stuff here. And SCN, which we are using one of those, but we're not using it in interface 1. Interface 1 will be the combined movements of the 4 PRS 200 actuators. Again, it takes a little time to understand what's going on here, and that's why I don't want to dive too deep here. So we'll just go to interface 2. And you'll see right now we have COM 9, right? Now, the important thing about these COM ports is you can have anywhere between 3 and 9 as your COM port, and it works fine with this Prosimu profile, and inclusive of 3 and 9. So I have 8 in the other one, and this one is 9. And you'll see here, this is the SCN output, and up here, interface type is SCN. So that is our axis 5A, which is our yaw and our traction loss. So you want to make sure these COM ports are right. It's the main thing here. All this other stuff is set up for you. But if you got to pick the right COM port. If you pick COM port 10, it's not going to work. If you pick COM port 2, it's still not going to work. So I have 8 and 9 selected. And you can see I have 9 and 8 here, and also 5 and 1, because I have a couple of things running on the USB, but not much. And I'm just kind of playing around with stuff while I do this video. Right. So interface 1 and interface 2 is all we're concerned with. And again, the COM ports are the most important thing here. Everything else is pretty much set up for you, which is a good thing that Prosimu has done this. All right, what else do we want to talk about here? There are output testing. Now this is where, once we got our COM ports working, then we can go in here and actually test the output. And we first have to turn it on, and that's what we're going to do here. And when we do that, the system will go up, as you can see, halfway, and that's the middle of the range of these actuators. So we can actually test this from pitch roll. We can test from just the A-axes, and that would be if I just wanted to test one actuator at a time. Axis 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A would be the PRS 200s, and 5A would be the yaw. Or we can just go to the DOF and try that, and you can actually, and I'm going to show you guys this thing moving, and it's going to look jerky because it's very sensitive when it's in this mode. It's not jerky like this when you're actually using it. So be prepared to see some jerkiness. So I'm going to test my roll, and I'm going to roll it to right. So you can see right is working. Go back to the left, and again, it's kind of jerky in this. So it's a heck of a ride, actually. And we can just hit clear to get back to 0. And then I test my pitch, front and backwards. So I'm going frontwards, I'm going backwards, frontwards, backwards, frontwards, backwards. All right. And we'll try heave, and that means the whole platform should go up or down. There I'm going down, here I'm going up. Elevator up. Whoa! Having some fun here. Let's see, the yaw actually doesn't work because it's part of the sway package. Yeah, let's see what sways does. I'm not sure. Yeah, there we go. You can see sway is kind of, but the yaw's not moving here, it's just sway. All right, so I'm basically rolling for sway, as you guys can see. So there's no real sway here, it's basically roll. Surge is the same thing, it's just going to pitch. See, it's pitching frontwards and backwards. All right, now you saw the yaw wasn't moving, but if I go to more and go over here to extra 1, you see we still have roll, pitch, and heave. Go to extra 1, and now my yaw is working. And you can, as you can probably hear, the SEN6 actuator is a bit chirpy. So not the most quiet thing in the world. I don't know how well it's picking up on my mic there. All right, so now you know your system's working, and that's what this is all about as far as output testing. You know, just making sure everything's working. If I turn this back off, it will gently lower me back down to the bottom like that. So now that we know everything is operating properly and moving in the right direction, we can move on to plugins. And first of all, plugins are basically what you have to have for SimTools to be able to start when the game starts and use any profiles or any other information, min, max in the tuning center, things like that. All that gets loaded in with this plugin. And then, of course, then we can go in and modify the profiles and things that are within this plugin. And all the plugins are in zip form, in the zip format, rather. And first off, we can't do any plugin updating with this stuff open here, right? So we got to close all this down. If I try to start it, just an example, it'll give me a warning, or it should. There it is. Game engine's running. You got to close game engine, try again. And it's going to give me the same warning for game manager. So I'm going to have to close those guys out to make this work. So we'll go ahead and exit out of game manager, and then we'll exit out of the game engine. So now when I start it, we should be good to go. And there it is. Plugin updater. And it's very simple to do this. First off, there's plugins available in SimTools where you can actually go there, and some plugins are for sale. So there's different plugins available in different places, but Prosimu has their own custom plugins, which is what I highly recommend you use. And you can modify the profiles from within those the plugins, rather, once you have them loaded up. So they have a page that you can download all these plugins. And I'm not going to show you the link to it because it's a private page. But you can see that there's a ton of downloads in here. And they're all in the zip format. And I'm going to pull up my folder here, Explorer. Get this guy over here. And let me try to move this. There we go. Everybody's got some room now. So these are some that I've already downloaded, and I've installed some of these too. I have, let's see, I don't think I did WRC, so I'll try to go ahead and use that one. And it's very simple. All you got to do is drag and drop this stuff, just like it says. Plugin updater, drag and drop. It's got a little wrench in there. So I'm going to get WRC. I don't know if I've put that one in there yet. So I'm going to drop it. File installed, installation complete. All right. So now we have the plugin loaded. We can actually close this down because we don't need it anymore. Now also remember, when you load SimTools, you're going to load the SimTools executable that ProSim gives you when you buy their system. And that has a couple of plugins already in it, and profiles and all that stuff already in it. So when you first open SimTools, as you saw, I had a set of Corsa and iRacing and something else in there, Live for Speed. And that's already loaded in there, so you can get up and running quick. And let's go ahead and get our engine starting. Let me close this guy. Yeah, I have to close that. I'm going to show you this little, if I can get it. There we go. This little warning popped up before I closed the updater. So again, we have to close that out before we can start it. So now that it's closed, I should be able to start my game engine again. And yep, they're starting. My yaw is working again. You hear that chirping going on? All right, so that's up and running. We'll get Game Manager running now. And I'm going to go ahead and get the game engine up where we can see it. And the Game Manager. Okay, there we go. All right. So now that I've loaded these games, I should have them in my drop downs in both places. I'm going to go to Access Assignments, and that takes a second to load when you first boot up. And now I have all these other games in here that I've put in there. Okay, easy enough, but we have to patch them. And I haven't patched a set of Corsa yet. And I can talk, I swear I can. And yeah, WRC went in there, so let's do that one. I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to go over here where it says on the bottom here, we got Tools, Vibe, Dash, and Patch. And we'll cover Game Manager a little bit more in detail in a minute. But yeah, I'm going to say Patch. And when you do that, this little drop down comes in. And it says, yeah, let's patch the game. So I just click on it. And it says, it always says this, I'm not sure why, but would you like to patch WRC4 for motion? Yeah. Patch installed. Very clean. That one went in pretty clean. Some of them give you little warnings, like you have to do a setting in Project Cars 2 for the MMF, which I believe is a memory setting you have to turn on for it to work correctly. So there are some things on certain games you have to do. But anyway, that one's installed successfully. And right now, you can see up here, this patched, before I click OK, is actually kind of a pinkish orangish looking color. So when I say OK, that should turn green. And there it is. So now it's green, which means it's patched and ready to go. So WRC4 is ready to rock. And I can go to another game and do the same thing. I believe, I haven't patched a set of Corsa yet, so let's patch that and see what happens real quick. And I'll say patch game. And it always says, would you like to patch? Yes. Patch installed. Oh, another clean one. All right, no warnings or anything. So, okay. And you can see that turn green now too. So I'm all ready to go for a set of Corsa. And you can actually click on what you have here to see what you're ready to go for. And if it's not, I get this unhandled exception here, but I say continue and it looks like it works right. So Dirt 4 is green. Okay. Dirt 4 is green. Dirt 4 is messing me up here, it looks like. Usually when I do control. Oh, it looks like we got a lockup. It shut down my game manager. Apparently it doesn't like Dirt 4. All right. Well, I'll show it all to you here, guys. So in case you have a problem like that, you'll say, hey, I saw that on that review Barry did on the Prosimu unit. So let's bring Game Manager back up. Thank God that game is gone. All right. So anyway, a set of courses patched. Let's see. What else? iRacing, it should be green. Yes, it's green. And Project Cars 2 is green. So there we go. What I have most of the stuff anyway is patched. So we're having little problems with WRC4 though, or Dirt 4 rather. So we'll work that out later. All right. So I just want to show you guys how to install the plugins that you can get. But you're going to want to get the plugins from the Prosimu site that I showed you before. There's a lot of them in there. I think it'll cover most things. You know, it has European Truck Driver and things like that. It's got a ton of stuff. All the DCS, Digital Combat Simulator stuff. So it's got a good selection. Now that we know how to download plugins and install them and activate them or patch them for whatever game that you want, let's take a look at some of the ways to tune in SimTools. First, we'll look at the game engine again. And there's a couple of things in here we can use for tuning. First of all, I'm going to bring down the Tuning Center, where you can do a lot of very detailed tweaking on the movements of your system based on these numbers down here in the pink. Right? Now, I'm going to also go back up to the output testing. And remember, we did the axis testing before, and that's the screen we use, but we also have this virtual axis screen. And this is actually showing us two things. The top part, the green part, is showing us the streaming telemetry coming off the game or from the game. And down on the purple here, it shows what SimTools is sending to the actuators to move them. And it's a good representation to see how things are moving to make sure things are doing what they should be doing. Now, the Tuning Center, I'm just going to touch on this real quick because there's a lot of things. Again, it goes pretty deep in what you can do here as far as capturing things and what have you. What I'm going to do is show you guys a real-time capture that I did while I was actually running in the game. And you can see that the virtual axis is working, and because of all the motion and movement I'm getting, I'm in a Ferrari 488 GT3 here at Sebring in iRacing. And on the bottom of the Tuning Center, you can see the streaming numbers on the top. And those numbers are representing degrees for pitch, roll, and yaw, and everything else is in G-force. And you can actually capture, there's buttons on the bottom there, you can actually capture that stream and then save those settings as far as what the telemetry is coming off the game. Now, you have to be doing a couple of regular laps. You don't want to do a lap or capture a lap where you're going off the course or going over bumps, big bumps, or like curbings, big curbings. You want to kind of just do some clean laps. And do a couple of clean laps, and then you can hit save the settings, and that'll give you an idea of what the real telemetry is in the game, and you can tweak from there. You can actually go in each one of those fields on the minimum maximum. I'm going to go back to the other one now that we saw everything moving. You can go down here into the minimum maximum fields and actually adjust that based on what's in there to what you like as far as whatever setup you're running. So it's very finite tweaking going on here. Now, where you're going to spend most of your time, I think, is going to be over here in Game Manager. Let's talk about that. Currently, I am in iRacing. My profile selection is Pro Truck 2, and that's in the Lucas trucks where we're jumping over a bunch of jumps. You know, with a 100mm motion availability, I am going to be jumping off stuff. Because that's going to put the most stress possible on this system, and you know, we like to push them hard here when we get them in at the Sim Racing Garage. And anyway, so you see I got iRacing up here, and of course all your games are selected here. And you pick whatever ones you're running. Of course I am running iRacing, so I'm going to leave it there. Also has some cars and trucks that I've done. I got the Rally Ford at the Rallycross car. I got the Pro Truck 4. It's actually a 4-wheel drive. I don't know why I put 2. I think I had 2 in there before. And I've got the Ferrari 488 at Sebring. Now, what we'll do is go to the profile editor. And you can, again, select this once we're in the profile editor. So, here we are. And there is a default setting, and you can see the default is 5. See that? When I moved it from default from my 488, because I put it back down, and pitch went to 10, because I was playing with it. Now, you can do this, very cool, you can do this in real time while you're in game, and change the way that the motion system is reacting. And we also have some other things we can do over here on the More tab. And right there, you can see I got traction loss at 25 and extra 2 at 0. And yeah, that's just for the Ferrari to get me that when my back end steps out, I can really feel it good with that setting. Of course, this is all subjective, again, when it comes to this kind of thing. So yeah, you might not like the same thing. So we go back here, and again, we can do roll, pitch, heave, yaw, sway, surge, and adjust it one way or another. If we're going up, let's take roll. If I'm going up, that means it's going to roll a lot more, especially a lot more when I'm going these kind of numbers. Or I don't want, it's too much roll at the default settings on the game, or what I have set, I can fine tune that and reduce the roll if I want to. And if I get lost, I'll just go over here to the return button, and it goes back to 0. Now, you can select the game in the main tab. There it is. So iRacing, again, all my games here. If I put something else in here, like I said, a Corsa, that will change the intensity level. You see how the intensity level changed there? Go back to iRacing, and it's at 97. Now, the intensity levels, you'll play with this a lot also, because this is a very quick system, right? It's 280 millimeters per second, so it's very fast, which means it can be jerky. It's so quick. So you can turn the intensity level down until it doesn't feel that way to you anymore. If I have this at 100, even with the Ferrari 488 at Sebring, it feels like I'm in a Formula 1 car at Sebring on the other systems that I've tried before, or that I use, like my D-Box. So yeah, I turned that down 3 points to mellow that out, so it wasn't such a hard hit, just going over regular road surface. But it can really, that's what's cool about this system, is that it can really display a lot of details if you turn it up. But you can do that with other systems too. And that's the default for, I'm going to go back to Assetto Corsa here. That's the default for Assetto Corsa, is 88. So again, I might play with that a little bit to get the feeling I want. And then I'll go into the editor itself, and I can play with the actual sliders again and play with what I want to do there, right? So we're back in main, Assetto Corsa. All right, I'm going to put this back on iRacing. So it's pretty simple stuff here when it comes to this part, the profile editor. And you'll be spending time in here. And again, real time, we can do our sliders and then try it, and then do another slider and try it to really get it dialed in to where you want, which is a very cool thing, I think. And yeah, this is it's about as deep as I want to go without getting into like a real tuning session with SimTools in general, and show you how I'm tweaking things and going over here to the tuning center and tweaking decimal numbers, because look at all these numbers on the right side of the decimal point, if you can see it that well in the video. Yeah, it's very finite on what you can do as adjusting these things, but typically you'll just be adjusting by whole numbers in here. So yeah, again, these are some very powerful tools to tame your system or make your system get crazy, whatever the case may be, whatever you're trying to achieve. But yeah, now that we know how to tune things and what I'll be doing to get the feel I want, now it's time just to do some driving and talk about what I ended up with for different vehicles that I'm driving. So here we are in iRacing in a 488 GT3 Ferrari and Sebring. And first off, it was a little bit rough riding here at 100% on the main percentage level slider in the game manager settings, but I was able to correct that with a 97 setting, and it felt pretty good then. These actuators are so quick here that, at 280 millimeters a second, the road surface felt like it was really jerky at 100. It was just a lot of noise coming in, and it was just too amplified, too intense, so I just turned that down, and everything seemed a lot better around 97. It felt like it normally should feel to me anyway. Of course, that's all subjective, but it is a very quick system, and you have to tame it. You can't just turn everything up and go for it. It just doesn't quite work that way with these type of actuators that are so fast. And everything's working good at that point. And yeah, I'm feeling what the car is doing. I'm going to give you another shot here of the rear end. I had the yaw set up. I had to put the slider on like 25 for the yaw. You can see it moving there. And I'm going to be jerking the wheel around, trying to show you guys it moving here. But you can see it's matching the speed of my wheel movements really well here. And I think I got pretty good loose here on this next corner. So we'll see how that moves. There you go. But yeah, you can see with the movement of the wheel, this thing really reacts quick. That SCN6 is doing a good job here. Probably one of the fastest yaw systems I've been on. Now, also, I was able to get in other cars, the Porsche. I got into the Mercedes GT car, and they all were able to get a setting set up that were just fine for them, that I would normally feel, or close to normal, I would feel like if it was on my usual system, my D-Box system. So no issues there. And even in a set of Corsa and Project Cars 2, I came up with some good stuff for regular sim car racing. And so it's perfectly adequate for that, even though we have a ton of travel here that we, in my opinion, really don't need for car racing. You just don't need 150 millimeters for that. But because we have 150 millimeters of travel, we're going to go have some fun. And here we are in the rallycross car at iRacing, and we're going to start jumping this thing and sliding it around. And yeah, this is where you really start having some fun with a system with the capabilities that this has as far as the travel is. And I set up the yaw pretty good here too. It slides around pretty good. When the car broke loose and we were sliding sideways, it felt pretty good, at least to me. And again, this is all subjective, but I got it to a setting where it felt to me like I could feel what the car was doing to counter steer it and keep it from sliding all the way around or not sliding enough like you have to do in this type of track. But yeah, this is, as you might have imagined, this is a lot of fun when you start getting into the softer suspension vehicles like this rally car and start going around the corners and obviously launching off of jumps. And yeah, when this thing lands, it doesn't look like it. Watch this. It doesn't look like much there, but you certainly do feel it. You have to be in the seat, because I was watching the video and I was thinking to myself, it feels like so much more when I'm landing than I'm looking at on the video. And that's why video really just can't convey the same thing that if you were in the seat you would be feeling. I mean, it's just not the same. I don't know what else to say about that. So if you ever get a chance, get in one of these and go jumping over some jumps, because that's where it starts shining. But as far as the travel goes, now, to really push this thing hard, and that's what I like to do here at the SRG, we're going to go over to the iRacing Lucas Oil trucks and watch these jumps. Yeah. That is a sensation that I've never felt before in a simulator for racing. And yeah, this thing, here's just where these 6 inches of travel is something that I wish everybody could have. It's just very, very cool. It leans good. Of course, the soft suspension in these dirt trucks, these dirt racing trucks for jumping all the time, it leans properly. At least it feels like it should from the soft suspension that these trucks have. And yeah, this is just a blast to do. And yeah, I actually spent more time in these trucks per hours that I put on the system because it was just so much fun. As you can see, it's just, once you get the hang of what the truck's doing, yeah, it's really a blast. And you can see the yaw. Obviously, we're gonna do another back end shot here. You can see me jumping, coming back down. Here we go over a big jump here, and you can see again. Watch this. This is a smooth landing there. There, it didn't move that much, but it felt more like it felt more movement. I felt more movement rather than. Yeah, it's just, even watching it, it gets me a little excited because it's fun to do. I mean, as you guys can probably imagine, this is just a blast. So again, I probably spent too much time in the trucks, and I definitely put a lot of pain and misery on this system too, doing this. So yeah, and I couldn't find any problems with it. I slapped the transfer bearings a few times, things like that, and yeah, everything just kept running just fine. And it also, the motors never even got more than ambient temperature as far as running them. So yeah, this is a good, I think, durable system, at least in the near term from what I've done to it. You know, running it hard for several hours doing the trucks. And again, the temperatures never got excessive and nothing broke. Even the bearings, the transfer bearings, I actually looked at them in the tube that they're sitting in from the rear just to make sure that I hadn't hurt anything. And yeah, everything looks pretty good. And I went around and retightened all the screws too. But again, as you can imagine, this is where this thing is a ton of fun. Right, so yeah, we'll get to the next segment. Now I'm just going to let you guys listen to the suspension working in the worst case scenario when it's in the Lucas oil truck and we're doing some jumps and stuff. So I'm just going to let you listen to this, and then I'll talk after you watch me go around the track once here. Okay, I have to say something here. Nothing broke there. That was just the transfer bearing slapping back down on the platform that it rides on. So I'll tell you about that in a minute. All right, so the last jump didn't make that slapping noise. And the reason for that is because, well, it was a nice landing. So the truck goes over a jump and it gets crooked, it rolls left or right. When it lands, one side of the truck's hitting first and the other side slaps back down. And this platform actually mimics that very, very well. And it's slapping the transfer bearing back down onto the plate that it rides on in the back there. And I'm happy to report that no transfer bearings were damaged or injured during the taping of this review. No, they all survived fine. I couldn't see any problems with them after I took a careful look through the tube there with the flashlight to make sure nothing was cracked or anything like that. Yeah, they're holding up like a champ. And remember, this is a super extreme example of how the typical person would be using a motion system. And the trucks are really putting a hurting on the system. It's taking a beating. So I thought it was appropriate, though, because that's what we like to do, show you everything we can here at the SRG when it comes to the noise in this case. So this is what the controller box sounds like. And yeah, the microphone on the camera picks it up a little bit louder, I think, than it is. And I'm showing you some ferrite chokes that I put on the cables here. Because these cables are not shielded, I wanted to do the best I could to try to keep the noise down on it. And I'm just showing you guys some chokes here. And also, you can hear me panning away from the controllers. Alright, so that's the noise from the controller box. Final thoughts on the T1000 5M motion platform from the guys at Prosimu. Here we have a motion system that is a complete custom package developed in-house by Prosimu. It's always interesting to me to see other people's takes on motion systems, from the design to the materials used in the platform's construction. The T1000 Cockpit is a simple but effective design that, well, just gets the job done. With a solid feel in the pedal tray and seat mount, the only flex I could find was in the wheelbase assembly itself. It's easy to see that this is not the stiffest of mounts, and when I first saw its design, I suspected as much. Super stiff is not an easy thing to do, with a single arm construction with attachment points on only one side of the assembly. Now, more strength could be had with a support structure applied to the opposite side of the wheelbase system. Of course, you can just buy the motion platform by itself and mount whatever cockpit that you want. Moving on to the motion platform section. We have a mostly robust, heavy assembly here. At first, I was concerned about how thin the metal is where the PRS-200 actuators are secured. But I never noticed any problems during use while pushing the system, well, pretty hard. Now, this is a SimTools-centric system, and while SimTools would never be called user-friendly, Prosimu does give the new user the easiest path I've seen to date to get the system up and running. Now, SimTools can be a daunting application to someone not familiar with it or some of the other more complicated applications out there, and some may not feel it's right for them. But if you take your time and do your due diligence, testing the settings and features that are explained in the 107-page manual, I think most will be able to master it in time. Now let's talk about the motion that a system using actuators that can move at 280 millimeters per second and have a travel range of 150 millimeters or 5.9 inches is capable of. At first use, I was using my usual car, the Ferrari 488 GT3 in iRacing, and of course I was running at Sebring. I had the main level slider at 100%, and the movement felt jerky, even when rolling over smooth pavement sections of this circuit, a side effect of the PRS-200's speed capabilities. However, it was not difficult to find a smoother setting by setting the slider to 97. Now, of course, all settings when using a motion platform are subjective depending on the user's preferences. Once I had become familiar with using SimTools to tweak all the available tuning options, I was able to find a satisfactory setting for, well, any car that I tested. I also tested in Assetto Corsa and Project Cars 2, where I was also able to get what I felt like were good settings that gave me a proper sense of what the car's suspension was doing. Then it was time to start pushing the motion system in more demanding situations. First, I went to rally cars in iRacing. Now, here's where some real fun can be had with Prosimu's system. Launching the car off the jumps and then landing, well, is something you have to do yourself to properly understand the impact of the range of motion the PRS-200 actuators can deliver. The video you see really does not do it justice. You have to really be here in the seat to understand. I was also able to dial in the traction loss movement to what I felt was pretty realistic for a car that is, well, sliding on dirt. Now, after spending a few hours with the rallycross cars, it was time to push this system even harder. What better place to do this than with iRacing's Locus Oil dirt racing trucks? Now, with the multiple jumps, one after another, and sliding hairpin turns, this is the ultimate testing ground for a motion system's capabilities. not only on how far you can push the travel elements of the system, but also its durability. Launching off consecutive jumps, some larger than others, and then the hard off-center landings can be pretty brutal, but also as much fun as I think I've ever had in a motion system to date. Here again, after pushing for a few hours, I did not detect any problems with the actuators or the motion platform's constructed parts. Even the motor's temperatures, when touched, never got over the room's ambient temperature. Now, while I cannot attest to the long-term durability of the actuators under these conditions, I can say that they are solidly built units that can take whatever you dish out to them, well, anyway, in the near term. Now, I did experience some issues that I'm pretty sure were caused by the electric motors in this system. Now, to me, this was not entirely a surprising thing to see. The motor cables used here are not shielded, and that can cause these kind of problems. And the limited shielding in the motor controller box, well, is just another place where it can be problems. I was able to limit it a bit with ferrite chokes attached to all the cabling used during my testing. But extra grounding wires attached to the pedals and wheelbase would have probably worked much better. And of course, proper shielding in the cabling would be the best solution of all. Now, these are not the quietest actuators I have tested, with the SEN6 being the most noticeable with its typical SCN chirping sounds. And the fans that the motor driver units have in them also can be easily heard. But in my environment, this is not an issue. But for some others, it may be something that they want to consider. Now, the complete system as tested here, it comes in at $9,640 plus shipping. Or you can just buy the 150 millimeter, P5 MP platform by itself and mount your own cockpit for $9,364. Overall, I had a blast testing this system, and it would be among the motion systems currently out there that I think deserves a very hard look if you're in the market for something like this. I'm Barry Rowland. Thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage channel. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and if you would like to help support what I do here at the SRG, visit my website at simracinggarage.com.